Welcome to today's Explainer. Let's just jump right in because we're looking at one of the most fascinating paradoxes in the global business world right now. The automotive market is in a state of absolute turbulence. We're talking massive geopolitical shifts, changing consumer demands, and technological transitions that are literally upending legacy giants. But right in the middle of all this chaos, one automotor isn't just surviving, they are thriving, and in a way that completely defies conventional industry logic. Today we're unpacking the counterintuitive triumph of Suzuki and how their highly unique, hyper-localized strategies have led them to record-breaking success while their competitors are bleeding cash.
Here is the roadmap for our analysis today. We're going to start with Section 1, the contrarian automotive winner. Then Section 2, their three pillars of defense. Section 3, the small, fewer, lighter philosophy. Section 4, the motorcycle profit engine. And finally, Section 5, looking inside Suzuki through employee voices.
All right, Section 1, the contrarian winner in the automotive industry. To really grasp Suzuki's success, we first have to understand the carnage happening all around them. Get this, 439.3 billion yen. That is Suzuki's record-breaking net income for the fiscal year ending March 2026. And it's fueled by a massive 6.29 trillion yen in total revenue, marking their fifth consecutive year of revenue growth. I mean, these aren't just good numbers, they're historic numbers for the company. But what makes this figure so incredibly impressive isn't just the sheer size of it, it's the environment they actually pulled this off in.
The contrast is honestly staggering. While Suzuki is posting these record profits, Toyota has been grappling with significant profit drops directly tied to U.S. tariff policies. Meanwhile, giants like Honda and Nissan, they have literally posted massive deficits, bleeding billions as they try to manage the incredibly expensive transition to electric vehicles. So the really crucial question here is, how on earth did Suzuki completely sidestep the landmines that blew up the balance sheets of the biggest car companies in the world?
That brings us to Section 2, three pillars of defense. Let's look at the macro strategy that shielded them from the headwinds, destroying their competitors' margins.
Suzuki built this incredibly sturdy armor using three highly distinct strategic factors. First, zero dependence on the U.S. market. Second, overwhelming dominance in India. And third, pragmatic EV avoidance. Let's unpack these, starting with their total insulation from U.S. geopolitical risks. While Toyota and Honda heavily rely on the American market, which obviously exposes them to Washington's tariff hikes and shifting political winds, Suzuki actually withdrew from the U.S. four-wheel market years ago. That meant when the U.S. market sneezed, Suzuki didn't even catch a cold. They were completely unexposed to the biggest geopolitical headache of the year.
Instead of fighting in the U.S., they focused their energy entirely on India. 41.3%. That is Suzuki's staggering market share in the Indian passenger car market right now. To put that into perspective, they achieved a record 1.86 million unit sales in India alone. They brilliantly leveraged local GST tax cuts to push their highly affordable compact cars to a rapidly expanding middle class. So while other automakers are fighting over saturated, hyper-competitive markets in the West, Suzuki just quietly built a fortress in what is now one of the most important emerging economies on the planet.
The third pillar is their highly practical product lineup. When the global EV market hit a major stall, competitors were forced into massive financial impairments, writing off billions in overly ambitious EV investments. Suzuki, on the other hand, stuck to a highly practical, affordable lineup of compacts and hybrids. Now, this wasn't necessarily a rejection of green technology, but rather a realistic assessment of what their primary customers in emerging markets could actually afford and use right now. This pragmatic avoidance totally saved them from the massive financial damage that crippled others during the EV slowdown.
Moving on to Section 3, small, fewer, lighter, shorter, beauty. Let's shift our focus from global sales to their internal R&D philosophy.
Pretty much everything at Suzuki is anchored by this one core philosophy, Shou-Shou-Kei Tan-Bi. Translated, that means small, fewer, lighter, shorter, beauty. And let me be clear, this isn't just a catchy slogan for posters in the break room. This actively dictates how they build cars, how they structure their supply chains, and crucially, how they approach intellectual property. It is all about maximizing value while ruthlessly eliminating waste and unnecessary complexity.
The results of this are highly evident in their intellectual property strategy. If you look at sheer patent volume, sure, Suzuki ranks lower than Toyota, Honda, or Nissan. But if you look at their price-to-book and price-to-earnings ratios, Suzuki actually ranks number one. This implies that the patents they do hold and the intellectual property they do develop are incredibly efficient and highly valued by the market. They don't just innovate for the sake of it. They innovate specifically to support that small, fewer, lighter philosophy. And this mindset leads to some truly fascinating hyper-localized R&D. They fiercely protect their core assets, like taking aggressive legal action to defend the trademark of their cult classic Jimny off-roader. They invest in unique, award-winning designs like the Hustler, which basically created an entirely new genre by fusing a light wagon with an SUV. But perhaps most incredibly, they're developing carbon-neutral biogas fueled by, wait for it, cow dung. Yes, literally cow dung. It's the absolute epitome of hyper-localized, pragmatic innovation that directly serves their largest market in rural India while also addressing carbon neutrality. But here is the wild twist I mentioned earlier. Despite those record net incomes, Suzuki's operating profit actually dropped by 3.1% this year. Why? Because they are pouring a staggering 4.5 trillion yen into the future. That is 2 trillion for R&D and 2.5 trillion for equipment, heavily focused on electrification and next-generation tech. They absolutely know their current internal combustion dominance won't last forever, so they're using the massive cash generated today to fund their survival tomorrow. This is what the company itself calls a proactive profit decrease. All right, Section 4, the motorcycle profit engine. Let's pivot to a surprising and often overlooked driver of their recent financial success. You know, for years, the motorcycle division was seen as a bit of a laggard when it came to profit margins. Well, not anymore. The motorcycle division has undergone an incredible transformation recently. They just hit a 10.6% operating profit margin, generating 366.9 billion yen in sales. That margin is actually significantly higher than the company's overall average of 8.7%. They have successfully turned a legacy business into a high-margin profit engine.
And again, all roads lead back to India. 891,000. That's the number of motorcycles Suzuki sold in India this past year, representing a massive 27.4% surge. Models like the Access 125 and Bergman Street 125 have become essential commuter tools for the Indian public. It's also really worth noting the cultural shift at the top. Suzuki's CEO is incredibly enthusiastic about the motorcycle division, frequently appearing in public riding their flagship Katana model. He's basically acting as the brand's biggest cheerleader. Now, to be completely fair, we have to impartially report that this motorcycle boom is not universal. Over in the ASEAN region, specifically China, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam, Suzuki is facing fierce headwinds. They're dealing with intense local competition and macroeconomic recessionary pressures that have actually caused their sales in these regions to decline. It's a pretty stark reminder that even a winning strategy requires constant defense.
Which brings us to Section 5, Inside Suzuki, Employee Voices. Let's peel back the final layer of the onion and look at the ground-level reality for the people actually working there. Those record profits are definitely trickling down. As this new graduate in sales notes, salary increases and substantial bonuses are creating a very content workforce when it comes to compensation. Furthermore, young talent in technical departments report being given major responsibilities really early on, like participating in overseas evaluations as early as their 3rd year. It sounds like a place where you can get your hands dirty quickly. But it's fascinating when you contrast that financial success with the reality of the corporate culture. Another employee stated that while results matter, there is a pervasive conservative trend of simply not making mistakes. Because salaries rise steadily regardless, the environment is described as lacking a hunger for aggressive, groundbreaking results. It's safe, it's stable, but perhaps a bit overly cautious. And that caution is currently clashing with management's attempt to modernize. Suzuki is undergoing HR system reforms right now, shifting toward a meritocracy with relative evaluations. As one employee noted, this is causing some real internal friction. The removal of specialized technical roles and the introduction of a grading curve has left some younger employees feeling like the company's direction is unclear, creating a divide between traditional departments and newer organizational structures. Despite these internal growing pains, Suzuki's management knows they cannot survive the future entirely alone. They know their small, fewer philosophy has limits when it comes to multi-billion-dollar tech research. That's exactly why, in 2019, they entered a strategic capital tie-up with Toyota. Toyota now actually holds a 4.94% stake in Suzuki. They're partnering to share the massive burden of next-generation technologies, specifically autonomous driving. Suzuki secures their weak flank, while Toyota gets access to Suzuki's unparalleled expertise in compact cars and the Indian market.
So that brings us to our final thought. Suzuki has played a masterful game of contrarian chess. They avoided the US, dominated India, completely sidestepped the EV cash burn, and funded their future with a booming motorcycle business and strategic partnerships. But I want to leave you with this question to consider. As the tides of automotive history inevitably shift toward electrification and autonomous networks globally over the next couple of decades, can this brilliant short-term blue ocean strategy hold up? Or will the sheer scale of global megatrends eventually force Suzuki out of their highly profitable niche? It's going to be a fascinating space to watch. Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep questioning the data.